What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at Webster Hall. First time here since pre-pandemic. It's great to be back. And today we are here with Alex of Kamelot. Thank you so much for being here today, man.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's awesome to have you here, especially for you. Happy double record release. First off, The Awakening, fantastic Kamelot album. I think it's one of, if not the best Kamelot album in the catalog, so excellent work.
Thank you.
And also happy record release day, or previous record release day for the Vertigo Trigger from Cyhra. So you've had a fairly busy 2023, right?
And I just became, father of twin boys, literally a little more than 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the first question I have for you is, where do you have time to sleep?
I don't have time. That's why I look so tired. So I apologize, but I just don't sleep. No, I mean, I try to, fit in a couple hours every night, but yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll sleep when we're dead, right?
I have a busy schedule indeed, yeah.
But being that The Awakening was your first record with Kamelot, were you looking at records such as The Shadow Empire, Ghost Opera, Epica, being like, this is how I have to play? Or were you kind of like given a little bit of your own range to bring your own mix into Kamelot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously with a band that's been around for that amount of time and, there's so many records, there is a certain frame within you can operate because it has to sound like the band. You cannot reinvent things completely, or you cannot change too much because you want to keep that signature sound. But at the same time, of course, you want to have your own influence and your own style, shown and being recognizable in there. And so it's a thin line. And fortunately, that was one of the upsides of the pandemic. We had a lot of time. And we really took the time. We really worked out every detail, really paid a lot of attention to every drum fill, everything. And I think we really managed to do exactly that. It sounds like Kamelot, but it's also different enough also in terms of the drumming. But I think also, generally speaking, the record is just really diverse and it turned out really well. I'm very happy with it too.
Absolutely. It really did come out awesome with the mix and the percussion in particular. It was one of the first things I've noticed. I've noticed a difference in it.
Thank you.
But for a lot of Kamelot fans such as myself, technically our first taste of your drumming was the live album that you put on 22, the I Am the Empire. So I was just wondering, because you got a taste of playing some of the older stuff, but you now also got to contribute with this new album. Do you maybe feel a different attachment to playing some of the earlier work as opposed to stuff off of The Awakening? Do you feel like maybe it resonates with you differently, or you channel a different technique into it or something like that?
Yeah, but it's coming from different places, and the beauty of it is that a lot of the old stuff resonates with me on a fan level, actually, because I used to love the band, So I still remember hearing Center of the Universe or Forever or March of Mephisto, hearing that for the first time and actually, thinking, this is great. This is a great band. So that's cool. I still have that feeling. I know what it feels like to be a fan. Obviously, I'm still a fan of, we're all fans still, right? And of course, the new stuff, these are my own, musical babies there. And so that's a different attachment where I feel like playing-wise, naturally, it's more suited, to my style, obviously, because I played it. But I love both, and both just from these two different angles,
Was there at all a vision that you went into The Awakening with? Was there like a preconceived idea, or was there like maybe a lot of experimentation involved with the making of this album?
It's hard to say. Like, for me personally, drumming-wise, there was a clear vision, and I really want to try to push the boundaries of what can be done within that Kamelot frame, and just trying to, put in as much as I can while still keeping that signature sound of the band. And just between us, and everybody, yeah. So, of course, what you want to do sometimes in a situation like this, you have your things that you really, really want to have on the record. So you do a little more than that, like do a little extra crazy thing. So then the band goes, I don't know, like maybe that's a little too much, but I think we can keep this. So that's how you do it,
Being such a prolific artist, your Metal Archives page is quite significant. But between Kamelot and Cyhra and so many projects currently and previously involved with, is there a different creative mindset depending on the project you're working with, or is there like a method behind the madness that kind of applies to everything that you're playing with?
Yeah, I think I go in with the same mindset, for any musical situation, and that is always I look at my job as what's the word? Like as a sculptor, right? Like you have a song and you wanna bring out the different sections and the transitions and all that, and emphasize certain spots and really make the song much clearer, right? Because sometimes if you see people, they're just playing the same beat. It works for some kinds of music, obviously, right? But there's no change, no nothing, no dynamics, and I don't like that. I really want to take the song and emphasize certain things and really build it. And that's how I always go into any recording session. I look at a song and see, how can I build something? How can I carve out the song a little more?
Do you prefer to have music before you lay down your drum patterns and your beats, or have you ever had like a whole pattern written and maybe the band could write over that?
That's interesting. That was back in the day, actually, like 25 years ago or so, with my high school friends, and when we used to make music, we sometimes would do that. But most often I find myself in a situation where actually the demos are almost too finished. Because that's the problem nowadays. I mean, and I'm guilty of it too, because I just recorded a MIDI pack for TuneTrack, so you can buy me in a box. And what happens is songwriters use these tools, and they're great for songwriting, but then they get attached to these grooves and fills. And then there's only so much you can change because it becomes a part of the song for them. So I'm always happy if the demos are really rough.
No, okay.
Because then there's something for me to still do musically, you know?
Well, I'm not going to talk shit, but when somebody presents you a demo with no drums on it, be honest, how off time is it sometimes?
Oh, of course, that can be absolutely, can be absolutely horrible, of course. Yeah. But then it's usually that people know that anyways, we're just using it as a really rough guide, and we're just recording, to the click, and just, making sure everything is perfect.
I've talked with a lot of drummers about this discussion. A lot of people assume because the drums aren't a very melodic-driven instrument that it's not really, and they don't say it like in a negative way, but it's not a very emotional instrument. It's all rhythm and it's all beats, so you don't hear the melody, and therefore it's more of a technical instrument. But I think that's ridiculous. I've watched plenty of playthroughs.
It is ridiculous, yeah.
When I listen to Letters to Myself or the latest Cyhra album, The Vertigo Trigger, I feel a lot of energy in every crash, every ride, every snare. So what are you, like, does every song or every drum pattern reflect a different emotion you were feeling at that time?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm trying to, and especially nowadays with a click track, right? Like, you have a set tempo, and you cannot say, oh, tonight I'm feeling this a little faster, or, there's not that kind of freedom anymore nowadays with the way that we work, right? But what I'm trying to do is, usually you can just, push a section a little more, or, pull it back a little more. And I'm actually doing that on a subconscious level. If you want to make a verse a little heavy, I'm pulling it back. If I want to get a little more energy for a chorus, I'm pushing the notes a little more. Always within that small frame that you have where it's still the beat, right? Yeah. But the beginning of the beat or the back end of the beat. And so that's something I'm doing. And I think you can put a lot of emotion with that. And then just dynamics. And I think on a really subconscious level, people can tell if you love what you're doing and if you're into it. If it's not just another buck, like, oh, $1, $2, $3, like, you're not doing it for the money, but you're really enjoying the music, and you're doing it for the music and for the people. And I think it just resonates with people differently.
Do you prefer to be in the company of your bandmates for any project you're in when writing drum parts, or isolation is such a great fuel for creativity? You prefer to be alone, where there's really nothing between you and the kit?
I gotta be honest here. Like that always depends on the situation. Like some people they can get so annoying and nervous in the studio because they're just overthinking things, and they're like, sometimes it's not better to have these around. But a lot of guys are so creative, and that I love having them around, or just so joyful. I don't really need to have anyone around as long as I sort of have a clear vision. And I have a producer that I mostly work with in Germany called Phil Hillen, and Phil and I go way back, like 25, 30 years back. By this time, like, since we were little kids, and we've worked so much together. And basically, I know when he, also in terms of perfection, like when he says, this was fine, Alex, we can keep this, then I'm like, okay, we can keep this. Because otherwise I would just re-record just for perfectionism,
Wow.
Which is also, but strangely enough, that has also changed a little bit. with the way that records are nowadays too perfect and too polished. So now, as I get older, I start embracing, you know, a little more of a human touch sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you want to have that in there, but still, there's like this human perfection, and that's what we strive for.
Yeah.
But of course, not quantized 100% perfection. That's boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a few more questions for you, but you know, because I've interviewed drummers of all genres: hardcore, death metal, black metal, metalcore, all different types of genres. Is there such a thing, and not to pigeonhole Kamelot in any way, shape, or forms, but the sort of symphonic metal, power metal, whatever you call it? Is there like a signature technique that applies to your genre that none of the metalcore drummers use, or none of the death metal drummers use? Or
Yeah, well, there is a certain thing about that whole symphonic metal or power metal thing, and that's the tempo that we're supposed to play double bass at, right? And I think this is kind of crucial because we're talking about that 160, 170, 180 range BPM, and strangely enough, a lot of really, really fast drummers, let's say the people that can go above 220, 230, they have problems playing these slower tempos. And the groove drummers, for them, that's fast. That's like, oh my God, 170, 180 is really fast. It's sort of in the middle. And it's in the middle between two techniques, between full leg motion and ankle motion. And it's surprisingly hard for a lot of people. Like, and I guess I worked a lot on it, and it just kind of comes natural to me. But I think this is one of the signature things that you really have to be able to do. And it's not, to me, that's probably musically the most uninteresting part of it, right? Like running in place. But it is a big part of the music.
of course.
And I mean, in the context, it's great. Just playing wise, it's not the most interesting thing sometimes.
Yeah.
But then again, if it fits the music, and you know, sometimes you have that, it just creates that, you know, powerful moment and feeling. Then I'm enjoying it. You know, and it's a little bit of a workout too. You know?
I could tell that you enjoy what you do,
I love it,
which is amazing. But you know, in the end, like, because I've talked to like singers and guitar players about like stage presence and like playing live, because you know, it's one thing to play in a studio, but you know, you're interacting with the crowd in a live set. But when you're a drummer, you know, you're looking at the same cymbals, the same toms, whether you're in a studio or a practice space or on stage. So, is there a big dramatic difference between playing live and playing in a studio, or is it fairly similar because you kind of have like the same visual working for you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think there's a vast difference between studio and live, because of the energy. Obviously, I don't have that kind of adrenaline in the studio. I mean, that would be crazy. So this in the studio environment, it's really about details, and it's really about music and composition. And live, it's really about the energy and the crowd and that moment, you know. I think that also comes with the kind of music we're playing. I think in a jazz setting, for example, where you do more, where you improvise more, and there's more musically diverse stuff happening in the moment, I guess, then they're probably very similar. Because then also they tend to improvise a lot on the recordings, and they're not just looking for that perfect fill or something. But in what we do, I think for me there's a clear difference between playing live and studio, at least in my approach and in the way I'm thinking in that moment.
Well, what I'm wondering too is because like your drums really do capture a moment where, like, you know, whether I'm listening to, you know, like a band like Cyhra or Kamelot, like I feel like you really tend to capture like an emotional moment. But if you have to take multiple takes of something and stuff, does it maybe make it, the more you work on something, the harder it is to sort of maintain the initial spark of the idea?
Absolutely. I mean, this is like one of the typically crazy things that sometimes, very often actually, your demos sound better in a way that you can't put your finger on it. It's also for vocals. I actually have it a lot of time with vocals, because I think also vocals nowadays are overproduced. People tend to pitch correct great singers that otherwise you wouldn't actually need to pitch correct, but they just do it because that's how you do it, right? And stuff like that, or they cut away the breathing sounds and all that, make it very artificial. And then you hear the same guy or girl in a demo where they don't do that, and it's like, oh wow, this sounds, you know, a lot better. Best questions I've had.
Oh,
In a long, long time. Yeah.
Oh, I'm honored. I'm going to keep that in the frame.
Yeah, you should.
But and you led me perfectly into like the last two questions, because I feel like some people talk about a click track the same way that like people talk about backing tracks in a way. Like I understand it's needed sometimes, and I have I'm one of the people who doesn't see a problem with backing tracks and sometimes add ambience. And Kamelot, I'd love to see it one day, but you can't bring a 50-piece orchestra everywhere you go.
Exactly.
So like, but do you think there's always a time and a place for a click track and not to use it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is one of the topics that it's not a black or white kind of topic, or there's no like right or wrong answer here, right? In some instances, and I think Kamelot is one of them, it just does make a lot of sense. And as you said, we cannot bring like a full-on orchestra, and honestly, like sometimes even having some backing vocals. In a perfect world, we will be singing them, but I mean, Tommy is a fantastic singer, and none of us is as great a singer as he is. So everybody tries to do what they can, but sometimes you even have to have like a little bit of backings. To me, it gets painful when people are basically mimicking, when they're like their lead vocals are not live, or even I've heard stories that even like kick drums are not live or stuff like that. It's really weird. I haven't personally seen it yet. I don't want to.
I'm trying to picture that. I almost want to see that live, just to see how they would pull that off.
Well, obviously you can use a mesh head, and that's like silent, and then the person plays, and you use the tracks for the kick drum. I don't know. Like I haven't seen it yet. I just the other day I saw somebody talk about it, but hey, let's. I mean, vocals, guitars, that kind of everything should be live. Whatever you can play, you should play, right?
Absolutely.
And then if you feel like I need to add something for the mix musically, for musical reasons, to make it, sound like the song is supposed to sound, well then, just by all means go for it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for such an awesome conversation. In case you are all wondering why the difference in camera angles, it's because my tripod is garbage. That's why. But before we go, thanks again for your time today and for such an awesome album, both with Kamelot and with Cyhra. Just is there anything else that you would like to promote for this upcoming tour, or for this current tour with Kamelot, with The Awakening out, and anything else you'd like to promote for the 75 projects you're involved with?
I just recorded like the second album for Philosophophobia, a progressive band that I formed a million years ago. So people can check that out as well, Philosophophobia. And there's so much to talk about. I have my line of jewelry made of symbols.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That is so cool.
It's called Gem Sessions, and we make jewelry out of old and broken symbols. And we've done it for a lot of artists, also other bands, and even for Anthrax, Halloween. You should look it up. Gem Sessions. GEMSESSEONS.
That is
Gem Sessions.
That is genius. I'm gonna.
Nice.
Are you taking donations for any broken symbols?
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, like shipping. We're based out of Germany, so shipping something from the States over, it's probably not cost effective. Yeah. But we try to get them in Europe.
I'll smuggle them. I'll smuggle them.
Awesome.
Yep. Instead of smuggling cocaine, I'll smuggle
broken symbols.
Broken symbols.
Of course. But, I mean, it's upcycling. It's like I like that. Taking something broken, making something new out of it. And a part of our revenue goes to a charity that is promoting musical lessons for kids. So it's like we want to look at it as a circle, Like you have an instrument, it breaks, and it creates something new out of it.
Definitely. And those symbols are weapons too. I would sometimes use them as like a box cutter or something like that.
Totally. Yeah.
But thank you so much. We are here with Alex of Kamelot and Cyhra. Check out The Awakening from Kamelot, out now. Check out the Vertigo Trigger by Cyhra. Check out Gem Sessions. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.